Hi guys, Drew back again with Princess Craft RV, and today we are going to walk through the accessories and the appliances on the Arctic Fox 811. If you enjoy our walkthroughs, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we hope you enjoy the walkthrough. All right guys, starting here at the driver's side front corner as always, we are going to see the Rico Titan lift system with this unit. This is a wirelessly controlled system. Generally that orientation of that remote is going to be from the rear, and we're going to make sure we cover it when we do get to the rear of the unit and the location of the actual switch. Reason for talking about it at this time is I do want to talk about the manual drive of the jack system. We will find a rubber plug on each one of these jacks. If we go ahead and remove that plug, you're going to find a 3/8 square drive. So the same thing that you're going to find on a ratchet or an extension. So the idea being is that you would keep an extension and a ratchet in the 3/8 variant with the unit, and in the event of a power loss situation, you can remove that rubber plug and operate that up or down in the event. Coming right beside there, we have our potable water fill. This is what you're going to use in the Capacity if you're doing any boondocking or any off-grid camping. Before we get there, we're going to stick a drinking water hose directly into the orifice. We're going to fill it up till we are satisfied. We cap off, and then we use the onboard 12-volt water pump to pressurize that system and draw that water up to the fixtures. We're, of course, going to make sure you get eyes on that switch and you know how to operate that system. If we drop down here to the water heater, this is a 6-gallon capacity dual source water heater. What that means for you is it will not only run on a straight 110 volt electricity, but it's also going to run on 12 volt with, propane with 12 volt direct spark ignition. So to switch in between those sources, those switches are also going to be located there on the inside. And again, we're going to make sure that you get eyes on those and you make sure exactly where everything is. Now the manufacturer of the water heater has a couple specific recommendations in terms of maintenance, not only from, again, a maintenance standpoint, but a safety standpoint. It is very important that we do operate and maintain this properly. So anytime the unit as a whole is going to be sitting for more than 7 days, it's very important that we drain all of the water from the unit. That's going to include the freshwater holding tank, the low point drains, as well as the water heater. So it's, again, important on how we drain it. We're going to need to depressurize it and then drain it. So when we go to depressurize it, we're going to cut off the overall inflow of water to the unit. If we're using city water, that's as easy as turning that water pressure off at the valve. And if we're using the potable water here, then it's just the flip of a switch turning that 12-volt water pump off. Once we've done so, we're going to go to the hot side of any fixture, whether that's the kitchen sink, the bathroom sink, or your outside shower here. We're going to open up that hot side, and we would then, we're going to open up the hot side, and we're going to blow off the excess pressure here at the fixture. So what you're going to see is you're going to see a little bit of water. You may see a little bit of steam. And again, what we're doing is we're just removing the pressure from the holding tank of the hot water heater. Once you've done that, you're going to come back down here with an 1.16" ratchet and extension, and we're going to go ahead and back that drain plug out. Now this drain plug not only is of course a drain plug, but it is also an anode rod. And with any anode rod, they act like a magnet for hard water deposits, calcification, things like that. They deposit onto the anode rod and eat away at that as opposed to the inside of the water heater. Generally, we see our customers get a year or two of service in between anode rod changes. Starts out about 12 inches by 3/4 of an inch. By the time it needs to be replaced, it's about the size of a pencil and looks very decrepit. So when it comes to returning the unit back to service or bringing it out of storage, it's important that we do prime or fill the unit with water before we actually start heating the water. So what we're going to do is, of course, we're going to make sure our anode rod is in place and tightened down. We're then going to pressurize the unit as a whole, whether that's hooking it up to city water down here or using the potable water here. With the whole unit pressurized, we're again going to go to the hot side of that fixture. We're going to open that up and turn it on. Now we're going to see a lot more water come from that fixture. We're also going to see a lot more air. So what's happening is it's displacing the air here within the tank and refilling it with water. Generally it takes about 5 minutes, but that flow at the fixture is going to be very airy and spitty. You'll know that you're full here when the flow at that fixture normalizes and you have a steady flow of water. That is your biggest indicator that you have 6 gallons of water in here, and you can start heating that water again, whether that be with 110 volt or propane gas with 12 volt direct spark ignition. Other than that, not only with this particular propane burning appliances, but all the propane burning appliances throughout the unit, it is very important that we protect those from the intrusion of mud daubers, flying insects, things like that. And we are going to do that by installing a bug screen, not only here on the louvers, but over the grating here as well. Moving on here, we have our outside sprayer port. I kind of already referenced that. You do have access to hot and cold water here, a quick disconnect in between the two. Of course, if it's pressurized, it's going to spit a little bit of water on you. What you have here is the male end. You're going to slide the locking collar there of the female side of things, insert fully, and then, of course, again, we have access to hot and cold water. Once we're done, we're going to go ahead and store this and close the door. Easy enough. Now, dropping down here, I'm going to move this water heater door out of the way. And if we drop down low here, we have our city water connection. So what we're going to use that for is if we're in the capacity of an RV park and we have full-time running water, we're going to hook up here. What that means for you is that anytime you're hooking into city water, water pressure becomes very important. So it's very important that we regulate our water pressure. Generally at the tap, you're going to find water pressure possibly anywhere between 80 to 100 psi. Generally, you're going to find these units are rated for 50 to 75 psi. So what this is going to do is keep that water pressure regulated well within the limits of the unit. And to use this, you're going to hook this directly onto the water source, as close to the water source as you can. So directly to the spigot side of things, hook this directly onto the spigot. You're then going to take your hose here, hook that directly onto the water pressure regulator. And lastly, we're going to take our trailer bound side of the hose, and we're going to make that connection by rotating the connection on the trailer. Again, I can't stress enough how important the use of a water pressure regulator is. If this gets lost, damaged, misplaced, stolen, whatever, make sure we're replacing this before taking the unit out, to of course avoid any unnecessary stress to that plumbing system. Moving back here, still on the underside of the camper, we are going to have a portable solar connection here. Now this unit is equipped with a small rooftop solar panel. This would be used to go ahead and use what they call a portable panel, a folding briefcase style panel. What you're going to do is, of course, make your plug and play connection here. This is a direct connection to the battery. Most of those portable or briefcase style panels will have the charge controller built directly into the panel. What that's going to do is monitor the incoming energy and make sure you're not overcharging the batteries. So it's as easy as a plug and play connection here. And then directly behind that, we have our black tank flush. Generally, I like to talk about the proper procedures on how to dump before I talk about the black tank flush. What this is this corresponds with a jet inside the black water tank, specifically designed to help blast off compounded toilet waste, body waste, things like that. We'll kind of, once we get to the actual, the dump valves and things like that, and we're talking more about the black water system and the gray water system, we will talk more about this black tank flush, and just remember the location here underneath the wing. Now coming back up here, we are going to find our cable satellite inlets. So what we have here is just two RG6 cable fittings that pass through to the designated TV area of the camper. What that will allow you to do is either feed a park cable service or aftermarket satellite package directly into the unit. And then beside that, we have our 30 amp 110 volt power supply here. Now this is a shop cord here. We have your cord directly on the floor here, but they're going to plug in the very same way. Yours just looks slightly different. If you look at either plug, you're going to see two slanted prongs or receptacles and one L-shaped receptacle. If you line them up with the corresponding prongs and plug straight in, We're going to then give it an 1/8 inch turn to the right. That locks it in. Then we do have a secondary collar here to screw down, lock it in further. Now, my #1 recommendation that I make with any unit that I deliver is going to be the addition of a 30 amp surge protector. So there is as you could imagine, there is a ton of stuff going on within this unit electronically, and the only way to effectively protect that stuff is going to be managing the incoming power with a surge protector. So whether that's going to protect you from substandard wiring, dirty power, electrical, environmental surges, things like that, if you install the proper surge protector, you're going to be protected either way. So that's definitely why we recommend it. If you have any questions on the products that we recommend or how to properly use them, feel free to give our parts department a call. They would be more than happy to go ahead and educate you on the proper use of a surge protector and why it is so important. Moving on here, we have our battery bank here. Now, this particular camper is made up with a battery bank of 2 Group 27 batteries. They are on a sliding tray, as you can see it, and they should be strapped down. So you'll, of course, strap them down, and then you can pull them out for any maintenance. These particular batteries that we have installed here are maintenance-free batteries. If at some point you were to install a standard lead acid or flooded battery, don't forget that we want to check the water level in those batteries once every 90 days, of course. And then below or above that, we have plumbing and appliance access. So let me go ahead and unlock this. And what you're going to find is essentially underneath the bathroom sink. Why it's important to have access to that is if you have any plumbing leaks or anything like that, the way that the inside of the bathroom is designed, it does not give you easy access. So it's nice to have this door here on the exterior in the event that anything goes wrong in the future. Next up is going to be our propane. This unit is equipped with 2 30-pound propane cylinders. They are secured in place with 2 tension bands, so you could potentially lock those down. If you want to go ahead and remove them, as easy as opening up the clasp there, disconnecting your propane pigtail here, and then going ahead and pulling them out. Now, in between both of those cylinders, you're going to find an automatic switchover propane regulator. You're going to go ahead and directionalize that with this little black piece of plastic towards your primary propane tank. The idea being is that if you have both of these tank valves open and you use the entirety of your primary tank, it will go ahead and automatically switch over to your secondary tank. Now, in the meantime, with this tank empty, of course, drawing off of this tank, if we go ahead and flip this over to this tank, what that's going to allow you to do is go ahead and remove this tank and get it filled while you are drawing off of this tank. Once you've done so, of course, you can finish drawing off of this tank and then, kind of reset the whole system. Whichever works for you. You do also have a flow indicator there. Maybe a little hard to see. It's lit up red right now or indicating towards the red side. When you do have a flow of propane going through that line, it will indicate green. And then down below that, we have just a storage compartment here. Nothing too crazy to speak of. It is just a wing storage compartment, so not a ton of space, but it is an efficient use of space. Coming around here to the rear of the unit, we are going to, of course, we have the Fox wing, or Fox landing as they call it, with the flip up step. So what you do is you fold the bottom step up, and that will automatically drop into place and keep that up while going down the road. And then, of course, once you are at your destination, you pull up here on this little black piece of plastic that will allow that to fold down, and then you go ahead and fold down your second set of steps as well. So when removing your step here, it's very easy. You have some spring clips here. You're going to lift up out of that seated position and give it a quarter turn. That's going to actually hold that open. From there, it's as easy as just pulling that step out of the way. And then we are going to, again, unlock the compartment here. And what you're going to find is a very useful slide out tray. So this thing is super deep. It does lock in and out. Your release handle is going to be here on my side. All right, guys, here at the rear of the unit, quite a bit going on here in this specific compartment. This is going to house our low point drain valves, our gray and black water dump valves, our battery disconnect switch, and of course our Rico Titan jack activation switch. So starting with the low point drains, these are going to be the lowest point in the unit's plumbing. This is going to be how you drain everything in between water source and fixture. These valves that you see, of course, that's what you're going to be opening up. The rest of that line comes down and transitions through the floor, so it's going to dump that from this area. Now, as referenced earlier in the presentation when we were talking about the water heater, anytime the unit is going to be in storage for more than 7 days, it is very important that we have that water or that unit empty of water, and the low point drains play a very important role in that. So what we're going to do is we would open up these low point drains. We would drain the freshwater holding tank if it's been in use, and then we're going to go through the procedure we talked about previously with the water heater. Once we've done that to those 3 locations, the unit is going to be ready for storage. That is also what you're going to do if you are winterizing the unit. That's going to be the first portion of winterizing, is of course getting all the water out from the unit. Now also we have your gray and black water dump valves here. This is something that becomes very important that you are operating this properly, especially with this black water holding tank. It's very important that we keep that in as wet or flowing condition as we can. How you are going to do that is by keeping this valve in the closed position and using the onboard monitor panel. To inspect the levels. Once it is time to dump, it is just a 6-inch pull up here on this valve. So black for black water, gray for gray water. These 2 valves should never be opened at the same time. It's important that we avoid any backfeeding or cross-contamination issues. So a popular option, or how generally a lot of people will do it, is they will of course make their connection here with the bayonet fitting and sewage hose on the underside of the wing. Once they check their monitor panel and it tells them that it is full, they're going to come up here. They're going to dump their black water tank first by lifting up on that valve again. Once they are satisfied with that, they close that valve off. They then lift up their gray water valve to go ahead and dump that gray water holding tank. What that's going to do is rinse any shared plumbing in between the 2 and also help rinse out your sewage hose on the way out. Now, one thing that we kind of referenced earlier is going to be your black tank flush. This would be the time to use that. So what you're going to do is then you're going to close your gray water valve. Since you're done with that, we are then going to, and this is the most important step, reopen up our black water valve there. That way, as we're introducing water into that holding tank, it's very important that we do not overflow that tank. So make sure that black water valve is in the open position. You're going to make your connection at that black tank flush. And again, just a reminder, that corresponds with a jet inside the black water tank, and that is specifically designed to help blast off compounded toilet waste, body waste, things like that. If you're lucky enough to have a sewage hose with a clear elbow, you're going to go ahead and rinse that black water tank until that water runs clear. Generally, that's good enough. Once you're done, don't forget to, of course, close your black water valve once it's done draining. Also, we have our battery disconnect switch. What we're going to do is use that to isolate those batteries for long-term storage. With any 12-volt system, you're going to have nominal or phantom draws kind of running in the background. Generally from the day-to-day, that's no big deal, but compounded over like a month in storage, 2 months in storage, they can wear and tear on those batteries. So the idea being is that once you introduce the unit into storage, you're going to open up this compartment, you're going to go ahead and flip that switch. That again will go ahead and isolate that system. Easiest way to kind of generally orientate yourself with this, if the picture of the battery is correct, the orientation is correct, you are going to be connected or set up. And then if we go ahead and flip that on your side, that would be isolated or disconnected. Now also in that compartment, we have our Rico Titan switch there. That is just a on-off toggle switch. It is labeled. We're going to make sure that we push that until the light turns on. And with that in the on position, we're going to go ahead and take a look at our remote. And if we're going ahead and looking at our remote, I remember I said orientation is from the rear. So this is going to be our driver side front jack, our driver side rear jack, passenger front, passenger rear, or all up or down at the same time. So you can kind of fine tune in any orientation that you'd like, or lift all up or down. Now this is going to be your primary remote. This is going to run on batteries. If this were to run out of batteries, you can always go ahead and plug this directly into the jack switchboard there. So a little 3.5 millimeter connection here. If we go ahead and make our connection there and then plug that directly into that panel, you can operate this again in the event that you were to run out of batteries. Now, if you are unfortunate enough to like leave this on your bumper, or this isn't working for you, it gets lost or whatever, there is a secondary remote. This is going to be your emergency only remote. And this one doesn't run on batteries. It only runs plugged in. So you have a separate remote, separate cord, and it will only run plugged in and is designed to get you out of a bind if need be. Also in this compartment, the only thing we haven't spoke of is the fact that it does have a light, easy on-off toggle switch kind of behind that plumbing and everything. You may miss it if you didn't know it was there. Also here to the right of that compartment, we got a couple 15 amp all-weather outlets. What this is going to allow you to do is, of course, power any appliances here on the back portion of the unit. Moving over here to the generator compartment, what you're going to find here is your external access to your generator. Now generally we won't spend a terrible amount of time on this particular portion of the unit. The main switch is going to be on the inside. I find that that's what generally most people will use. Now one thing I do want to point out, and it's always very hard to get this on camera, but if we see this switch here, if we look directly below that switch, there's a big yellow breaker. That's going to be your outputting power breaker. What that's going to do is if that gets tripped, it will, the generator will start and run just fine, but it's not going to output any power, so it's not going to really do anything. Those breakers are really soft to the touch, so often what happens, we get a call about this all the time. What will happen is you'll go over a bump or something, and just going over that bump is enough to go ahead and trip that breaker. You get to your destination, you fire up your generator, and it's not working as properly, working as designed. So generally, that's all you need to do is remove that cover, flip that breaker should be up in the on position, down in the off position. So make sure that is positioned correctly. And now also we have the manual drive for the slide out here. This is going to be the access for that. Now what you do is you have a disengage here on the motor. So you would go ahead and disengage that by moving this down. Once you've done so, again, this is one of these things that is very hard to see. If we look at the very rear of that shot, you can see a splined drive. If we go to the inside, underneath the step up into the dinette, you're going to find a couple pieces of square tubing. Once they are put together, it's shaped like a T. So essentially, it's like a giant wind-up toy. You can just, once that motor's disengaged, physically crank that slide in. That's actually an excellent option to have in the event, again, of some sort of power loss situation, some sort of equipment failure, something like that. You can still put that slide in and make it to a service center in the event of an emergency. Now also one thing we want to talk about here at the rear is going to be structural maintenance of the unit. It's very important that you do get on a 90-day maintenance schedule, and that is going to generally be slide out lubricating, seal maintenance, things like that. So also we're going to do a 360 inspection of the unit once every 90 days, inspecting rooftop sealants as well as sealants here along the body. What you're going to find up there on the roof is going to be a self-leveling lap sealant. If you see any degradation in that lap sealant, it's very important that we do touch up as necessary and that we use the proper products to do so. Everything you find here on the body is going to generally be a 100% silicone product. You can source that at any RV dealer or hardware store. And again, if you see any degradation, splitting, cracking, peeling of that silicone, make sure you go ahead and remove the bead and touch up as necessary. You're going to again be doing that inspection once every 90 days. When it comes to slide out maintenance, It's very important that we are lubricating the seals once every 90 days. You're going to use a dry silicone lubricant to go ahead and spray those seals down. Run that slide in and out a couple times and you're going to be good to go. Keep in mind that you do have 2 sets of seals, one here on the outside and one on the inside. That slide seals in both directions. Make sure we are lubricating both slides again with a seal conditioner. Now down below here, we're going to see the tracks of the slide. Again, every 90 days, we're going to use a white lithium grease spray, and we're going to spray those tracks, and we're going to again run that slide in and out a few times to distribute that lubricant, and we're going to be good with the slide out maintenance for the next 90 days. All right, next up is just going to be a slide out storage compartment, nothing too crazy. One thing I didn't mention here is all of these compartments do have magnetic hold open. That's super convenient when you are loading and unloading. Other than that, it is just a small storage compartment. Next up is going to be our furnace outlet. That is our exhaust vent, so most importantly, let it exhaust. We're not going to want to restrict that airflow, but it is also a very large intrusion point for mud daubers, flying insects, things like that. They want nothing more but to crawl into the burn tubes of this particular appliance and all of the propane appliances and make that kind of their new home. So again, same with the water heater. We're going to install a bug screen to keep those out. And then also we're going to do the very same thing for our refrigerator here. As you can see, you have your vent cover here. You have a vent cover top and bottom. These louvers have you know, some grating to them, but you know, not enough to keep those insects out. So we're going to add those specific bug screens to this particular appliance. Other than that, this does not really carry too terribly much maintenance, your refrigerator. Remove your panel, you know, a couple times a year, give it a visual inspection, make sure everything looks good. You're going to be good to go. When it does come to replacing your panel, you're going to align these tabs in their slots and swing upwards, making sure that these keeper tabs go into the correct location. Once everything is sitting flush, we go ahead and give that a quarter turn. That's going to go ahead and lock everything on. I always like to go back and, give this an extra pull to make sure it is in fact locked on. That way you're not going to lose this going down the road. That just about covers it here on the 811 exterior. We're going to go ahead and hop on the inside and take a look at those appliances. All right, guys, so right here inside the door, we're going to have a main dimmer switch. This is generally called like a courtesy light, so just a light that you can hit coming right in the door that's going to light up the space so you can further enter the unit. This particular model has a dimmer, which is a nice feature. Then we have our slide out in and out switch here, fully in, fully out. Make sure you're running that properly. We then have a couple 15 amp outlets and of course a vent there for the furnace. On the other side of the entry door, we have our fire extinguisher. Now, it is very important to test all of our safety equipment every single time we take the unit out. Reason being is, of course, if it is not working, then we want to replace it before we go on our trip. So we have a green test tab here. We go ahead and push it down. If it stays depressed, then it's time to replace the unit. If it springs back, you're in good shape and it is ready to use. Also, down here behind there, you might miss it if you didn't know it was there, is going to be your awning switch. So this is a momentary switch for this rear awning. Biggest thing with that is you want to make sure that you do not roll it in inside out. So if you hit this in the extend position, once it reaches its fully extended position, if you keep holding it, it'll actually start rolling in backwards. So that's something you want to be aware of. And then as we come in further, you're going to find your awning light switch here. That's going to correspond with an LED light on that awning. And then we have a porch light switch there for that back area as well. To my left here, we're going to open up the bathroom door. It is latched for travel there. If I go ahead and open this up, not too terribly much that we need to cover in the restroom here. It is very kind of basic. You're going to have a pedal flush porcelain bowl. It'll be a light press on the pedal to fill that bowl with water, and then a full press to, of course, flush. Now, keep in mind, any toilet treatments, any chemical products are going to be introduced from this location, and also keep in mind that we are going to use a single-ply RV grade toilet paper. It's my recommendation that you use nice long flushes, feed as much water into that black water tank as you can. Of course, we discussed the importance of keeping that in as wet or flowing condition as we can. Other than that, in the bathroom, you're going to find a standard hand washing sink and shower head with a diverter. You're going to find that standard cutoff switch on that sprayer for the shower. What that's going to allow you to do is conserve water consumption without changing the mixing valve there at the fixture. Other than that, you have a standard RV exhaust fan, very basic crank up style with a toggle switch for on off. Do keep in mind that it is very important that you do keep those vent covers closed when going down the road. Chances are it won't be there when you get to where you're going if you do forget. Lastly, when you are traveling, make sure you do go ahead and latch this down to keep that from, again, going anywhere going down the road. Here on the other side of the bathroom door, of course, you have the dinette that it transitions into a bed. It's very easy to do that. Start out by kind of lifting the bottom cushion up out of the way as much as possible. And then if we look here on the underside of the table, we have a lock bar. So if I rotate that to the left, it's going to allow that table to drop down. If I put some pressure on it and drop it all the way down so it's resting here on these wood pieces, and then lock that into the locked position. From there, we go ahead and we take your cushions and kind of do a little bit of rearranging. And something like that will make out the bed. Also, we have storage on the underside of each dinette, or on each seating area, excuse me. And then if we lift up this, you have a little bit more storage there as well. I referenced this T-bar when we were on the exterior of the unit. That's what you're going to use to manually bring in the slide in the event that you need to do so. All right, so right above the dinette here, we do have another sleeping area. Of course, this one is more designed for a child. I'm not sure about the weight limit on this, but I do believe it's like 100 pounds weight limit. So if we go ahead and unlatch these bar latches, and then we go ahead and pull that down, we can see these side supports there. Once we've done so, what we're going to need to do is come here into the cabinetry. And we get this guy here. And you put that in place. And then you're going to find some bar latches here behind the shade. I'm not going to go through the trouble of latching those in, but you can see them there. And then you take your mattress pad here, and then you have a bunk bed. Moving on here into the kitchen, we're going to have a pull-out pantry here. We'll lock in the internal position. That way your stuff, your food and such is not going to be working its way out when you're going down the road. And then again, just kind of some standard cabinetry things here. Moving into the kitchen area, of course, we have a Furon microwave here, turntable style microwave, very basic, very straightforward as to what you're generally used to. You have some presets up top, time and temperature below that, stop, clear, things like that. And then we have our hood vent, which is going to give you, of course, a light and an exhaust fan for when you're cooking a meal. And then to the right of that, we have our kitchen light switch, which is just about going to take care of all of the rest of the overhead lights in this kind of living area. And it is, again, on a dimmer switch, which makes that nice. Cooktop here, you're going to have a tempered glass top, which is nice. It's going to extend this countertop space. In the event that you are prepping a meal or something along those lines, it's nice to have that extra space. When you're lighting the stove, you lift up, and this will actually fold back like so. We have a couple options when we do go ahead and use this appliance. You have, of course, the blue lights here, and the middle's off, and then down is going to be the blue lights, but you will also have the oven lit up as well. When we go to light the burner, of course, there's a flame indicator here. It's nice because that light will turn red to allow you to show you that you have propane flowing through the line. And then you're just going to rotate this sparker clockwise. Generally, it will light right up for you. Same with the oven. So the oven's going to have a sparker or igniter as well. This one in particular, you have to push in and hold. So you'll push in and hold on the flame indicator. Rotate this until you see a pilot light up down here below the burner tube. And then once you've done so, you can go ahead and choose your temperature here for preheating. One thing to mention is make sure that we do go ahead and give this cast iron grating enough time to cool down. If we've just prepped a meal before closing this tempered glass lid, you don't want it to break or anything like that. Moving further here into the kitchen area, we're going to have a GFI resettable outlet here. All the receptacles on this unit are on the same circuit. What that means, if one of them gets overloaded, they kind of all follow suit, and this is of course going to be the reset point to give you further functionality to those outlets. And then we have this light here. This is not on a switch. It does have its own toggle switch there. You do have two brightness levels, whichever you prefer. And then of course we have a kind of large farmhouse style open sink. Does have the pull down sprayer. You do have a couple spray modes on that fixture as well. And then the nice HDPE countertop extender as well to again further help if you are trying to extend this space. That is paired very well with the countertop extension that would go here. As we look here into the backsplash kind of area, we're going to find our solar charge controller. What that's going to do is essentially be the brains behind the solar panel up there on the roof. It's going to intake energy as necessary and pay special attention not to overcharge your batteries. From your standpoint, not really very much you have to do with that. It is kind of all happening in the background. It does give you some information in terms of battery voltage and amp hours and capacities and things like that. And then up above that, we have kind of our multimedia center. This is going to be AM, FM radio, Bluetooth, CD, DVD. It does connect to the television to allow you to watch those DVDs on the television. You have this very nice display. My recommendation is going to be, this comes with its own service manual. Make sure you go ahead and read that service manual. That way you know how to directionalize the speakers, things like that. This is a head unit for a car, so it is going to perform in that capacity or very similar to that. And then down below we have our systems monitor or courtesy panel, quite a bit going on here. Up top here we have some tank indicators. This is going to give us a real-time readout here on this scale as to where our tanks sit and level of full. We can see our gray tank is 2/3 full. Our black tank is also 2/3 full. Fresh water is completely full, and battery is completely full. Battery will read full anytime you are plugged into shore power. To get a true readout of where your battery sits, you do need to unplug and test from this location. Next up, we have some lighted toggle switches. First up being the water pump. That's going to pressurize that freshwater system and bring that water up from the tank to the fixtures to make it usable. We have a porch light, which is going to be the porch light here on the driver's side of the unit. And then we have cab over lights, which is just going to turn all of these lights up top here, which is a really nice feature because if you have those lights on, you crawl out of bed, you don't want to have to crawl over all the way to the back wall to go ahead and turn those off. And then next up we have our water heater sources as mentioned on the exterior of the unit. We have our 110 volt heating element. We have our propane option as well. You can use both options as we have it here. That's going to give you the highest recharge rate, or you can also use those as those sources present themselves. Now, when we talk about here the gas side of things, when I go ahead and turn this switch on initially, now everything's up to temperature right now, so it's not really going to do much for us, but this light is going to come on solid, or it may come on and then turn off a few minutes later only to come back on. What that is essentially that's your indicator, excuse me, as to if the water heater has lit. So if you go ahead and try and light this and you come back 5 minutes later and that light is still on, what that means is that water heater is cycled or tried to light on propane 3 times and it failed to do so, so it's going to stop trying. Generally, the reason being is either you're out of propane at the cylinder or you have the cylinder in the off position. Either way, check and make sure that both of those are not the case, and then you can just turn that switch off, turn it back on, and it will cycle another 3 times. We also have our generator set switch here. This is very easy to operate. You hold that into the stop position till that light lights up. What you're doing is priming the generator with a burst of propane, and then we go ahead and crank that into the on position. We can hear that start up and run just fine. We have our hour counter there. One thing to keep in mind is if you have not started this in a while, when you do go to crank it, make sure we're not over cranking it. So generally I recommend my customers to count to 10 in their head to make sure they're not going to over crank it. We also have our air excel thermostat here. This is going to give you full function to not only the air conditioner but the furnace as well. If we go ahead and look at the unit here, we have one mode button and then we have up or down to control temperature. If I hit that mode button once, it's going to take us into the fan option. So just fan only to circulate air, no conditioned air, or of course no furnace. We are talking about the air conditioner blower motor here. So we have a couple options when it comes to fan, and then we will go into the air conditioner options, which are going to be a high fan speed, a low fan speed, and an auto. If you go to either low or high as opposed to auto, then that fan is going to continue to run indefinitely, whether or not it reaches this 65-degree temperature or not, or 69, I can't exactly see what that says. And then if I hit that mode button one more time, we're gonna just go further into the air conditioner modes. Once I get here to the heat side of things, that's going to be the furnace. That's going to kick that blower motor on immediately. 16 seconds after that, it actually ignites. By that 30-second mark, it's producing noticeable heat. If that were to happen to set off the smoke alarm within the first 15 minutes of operation, not something you have to worry about. It is mildly inconvenient, but it is completely acceptable from the manufacturer's standpoint. And we will go ahead and turn that off. And once we turn it off, that furnace will continue to run for about 2 minutes while it kind of blows off that excess heat, things like that. Turning around here to the refrigerator, you have a standard nor cold refrigerator here with the controls on the front eyebrow panel there. Nothing too crazy in terms of capacity. It is a good size for an RV. You do have locks there or latches on the doors to keep them from swinging open when it is fully loaded. We have, of course, a single on-off button here and our mode button. Now, your indicator here that everything is going to be correct and working properly is the green light. And then, of course, if you have any issues like lighting on propane or your 110 volt power were to get interrupted, it's going to indicate red to you here. So we have our modes. The drop here is, of course, going to be your liquid propane gas. We have auto AC. Now, on that auto feature of on that auto AC, what that means is it's going to, of course, prefer AC voltage if it's available. If that becomes interrupted, it's going to automatically switch to gas. And if I hit that one more time, that's going to take us there into just the AC mode. Now, if AC voltage gets interrupted in that mode, nothing happens. So you're just going to be without a refrigerator there. And then I hit it one more time and we're back to the liquid propane gas. And then I have control here over the temperature. The more snowflakes you see, of course, the colder the unit will run. And then up above my head, I have another very important piece of safety equipment that is going to be your smoke alarm, obviously. That runs on a 9-volt battery, same variant you generally find at home. Do keep in mind that you will want to keep a spare 9-volt battery with you in the event that starts to go out and alert to you that it needs to be changed. Of course, it's not going to be our recommendation to ever remove that battery and go without. On the other side of this cabinetry here, we're going to find our carbon monoxide LP leak detector, carbon monoxide detector. You have a separate one down here into the kitchen area, but what that will allow you to do is, since those gases rise, will allow you to be protected when you're in bed. And then we see our other carbon monoxide LP leak detector, or main one, down here. It's very important that we do test both of those out every single time we take the unit out. Reason being is, of course, we want to make sure they're in good working order. Now, these are 12-volt appliances, so there's no batteries to change, anything like that. Underneath the cabinetry here, we have our power converter. This is going to be the hub of breakers and fuses. Everything here on the right side is going to utilize a automotive 12-volt style fuse. So, of course, my recommendation is going to be pick up a variety pack of fuses, keep them with the unit in the event any of these appliances were to need the fuse replaced. And they are labeled there in terms of function. And then there on the left side of that panel, we're going to see our resettable household style 110-volt breakers and appliances labeled on the door as well. Up here into the cab over, we have, first up is going to be our television set. Now this is a 12-volt television set. What that will allow you to do is, of course, take advantage of watching that off-grid. It is locked into place. It's important that you remember to lock it into place before going down the road so it's not bouncing around on you. And then you have a pull chain here on the underside. If you go ahead and pull down on that, that will allow that to come out. Of course, you have full extension, a extremely large arm on there. Behind the TV here, we're going to find our charging section, or charging center, excuse me. What that will allow you to do is, of course, power that television. Then you have a couple USBs to charge any devices or run any USB driven appliances. And then if I kind of rotate this out of the way, we're going to find our antenna booster here. What this will allow you to do is, of course, you have an omnidirectional digital over-the-air television antenna, and what this is going to allow you to do is take advantage of local programming, things like that, over-the-air television. You do have the one here on the left is going to be for said antenna, and then the one here on the right is going to be for your Wi-Fi extender, which is also located on the roof. Both are going to be powered from this area here. Do keep in mind, if we are taking advantage of a park cable service on that cable line, that light here on the left will have to be off. All right, very important is going to be our emergency exit window. That is, of course, to the right of the television there. Functionality wise, it can operate as a normal window. You can open that if you want to get some airflow, things like that. In the event of an emergency, you will, of course, pull that screen out of the way, and that window will fully open, kind of like a doggy door, to allow you to exit from the cab over area here. Moving on along this back wall, you are going to find your reading lights. This goes the same for both sides of the bed. We have our accent lighting here. What that's going to do is be the lighting behind the shelves up here in the cab over. A couple 15 amp outlets, a couple USB outlets as well. And then down below in the corner, we have a cup holder there on both sides of the bed. Above my head here, we have a high-powered exhaust fan, or actually this is bi-directional. When we go ahead and open that up, we have to choose a direction, and then generally you have to choose a speed as well. This was already in the on position. You do have four different speed options. It will get up and go. And then if we want, we can go ahead and reverse that to either draw air in from the outside or vent the camper. Again, just a reminder, make sure we do go ahead and close that lid before going down the road to keep that fan in good shape. All right, guys, we hope you enjoyed that walkthrough on the Arctic Fox 811. We hope we answered all your questions. If anything comes up, any questions or concerns, don't hesitate to give us a call or comment below. Thank you so much for your time. We very much appreciate it. Thank you.